Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno, California. We are the heart of the Central Valley, and we are the heart of California. Welcome to the show. Glad you're back. It's a great day. I'm glad to be here, and I could go on, but I have other things I think I'm going to cover today. And I've had people ask me from time to time, how is it that I make the choices to cover the things I cover? And truth be told, sometimes there's suggestions. Someone's emailed me with a question, and I'll take the time in a show to really drill down on that question. Sometimes it's something that's on my heart. Maybe I want to teach. Last couple of shows, I worked out of Living the Science of Mind because there were some things there I wanted to share. And today, as I was preparing for today, I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of touch on a lot of different things, and maybe it'll coalesce and maybe it won't, but there'll be some good information out there, I hope. Anyway, I'm glad you joined me today. There's just a lot of stuff, and where do I want to start? I think I'm going to start, this is The Hidden Power of the Bible by Ernest Holmes. And I came across this, and it's entitled The Brotherhood of Man. And remembering that Ernest wrote in a time where gender was not a real issue with someone writing. So, when he refers to the brotherhood or man in general, we know in reality he's talking about humanity and all of humanity. So I want to read this. He says, if this brotherhood of man were recognized and practiced by the world at large, all war, all poverty, and need would vanish from the face of the earth. They are creations of the finite mind and were never intended to be. God views all as a perfect whole. Our divisions are only apparent. They can never be real. Hate generates hate. Love begets love, and peace brings its own reward. Again, let us not fall under the illusion that we can possibly measure life from the short-range experience of that period of time between the cradle and the grave. Life is everlasting, and we are eternal beings. Eventually, love overcometh and exalteth itself above all, for love is a synonym for the eternal heart of the universe. That which we call God, the creative source of all it is. I referred to that today because I often refer to that just as a reminder for myself. You know, and I've said here many times, we look out into the world and, man, there's just so much chaos and so much stuff going on. How do we get it together? And when I say how do we get it together, I'm talking about the whole thing, the whole ball of wax, as some people say, the whole enchilada. How are we going to get it together? You know, they say at some point in time that the sun's going to burn out and the earth will go away and humanity will be gone. But there's people that say that part of the scenario, humanity being gone, is going to happen sooner than later. Ernest Holmes didn't believe that, and I don't believe it either. I think at the basis and at the foundation of each and every individual, whether they choose to believe in something eternal or whether they choose not, there's still something at the basis of all of us that seeks to see a greater good in life. Oftentimes we may not know how to express that, or maybe we know in a way that seems righteous to us but doesn't quite jive with the rest of the world. You know, our ego gets involved, and you know, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that comes into the mix. But when we stop and we pause and we allow our minds to settle and we open ourselves up to our heart, I think truly within each and every one of us, the relationship to the greater whole is, it's there. And you know, it's an amazing thing. In neuroscience today, they're still trying to figure out just what is the mind. I mean, for a long time, materialist philosophers and people in science, they said the mind was a function of the brain. And so, you know, as long as the cells, you know, did their stuff in the brain and we had the right chemicals and the right, you know, so on and so forth, that we would have a mind. Science today is kind of revisiting that in not a little way. And they're beginning to look at it kind of in a reverse position, that just maybe that the brain is a function of the mind. And that is that as we create our day-to-day reality in our mind, that the brain translates that into our experience. And it holds that because the brain really is the repository of our memories, and that's where our beliefs are. That's where that thing that Jung called the shadow lives, and it's what Ernest Holmes connected to what he called the subjective mind and race consciousness, and it lives there. It's not rooted there. It's rooted in a greater consciousness. But for each of us as an individual, that's kind of where it's at. So today, psychology, part of psychology anyway, behavioralists, I believe it's behavioralists, they say that you know, it's not the experience that you have, the physical experience, but it's your beliefs about the experience that determine your reality. And that makes a lot of sense, at least to me. But it's not exclusive to us, to just that. I mean, beliefs and our beliefs about them and the experience, they also create feelings. They create our physical reactions. So we've got conditions, we've got phenomena, we've got a whole lot of stuff going on. But it really starts with each and every one of us, with ourselves. If we see ourselves as exclusively separate, as we define ourselves as apart from, that is our reality, and you know, that is reality for some people. Materialists live in that reality. People that self-define as separate, they live in that reality. But that's not where Holmes saw the power of humanity, and it's not what he believed. He believed that in what he called the brotherhood, or the human family of humanity, being a oneness that we're totally connected with all. And you know, it just so ties in with things that we're taught in other spiritual teachings. And so, it was just, as I was thinking about the show today, it wasn't, my show's not intended to really be about that specifically, but it's an idea that, give some thought to your connectedness to a greater whole. And then question yourself. If you are truly connected to the greater whole, if there really is a oneness of which you are an individualized aspect, what does that mean for you? Are you going to be so fired up to want to go out and tell the world how it has to be in order to please you? Or are you going to consider that maybe within yourself you can create that which is ready to accept the world, not accept conditions in the world, but to accept the world on the terms of life and find and experience the greater good. And then as we do that, we do create a greater good in life. That was just a thought. I want to move from that to, let's see, where was I going with this? I think it's in here. And I want to go, this is Living the Science of Mind. Okay, here we go. And Living the Science of Mind under the topic of the discovery of God is personal. And boy, isn't it? It says Holmes says, no one can find God for us. Each individual must do this for him or herself. We cannot find God outside of the self because we cannot go outside of ourselves. There's no place where we begin and God leaves off. We can find God only within ourselves. And so as I was laying this out, that kind of ties into, where I started. We find God within ourselves, and we can't go outside of it. We can see things, and we can realize that it may be the expression of the divine creative force or source or spirit or God or whatever you choose to call it. We can see it unfold. Sometimes we call them miracles. Sometimes we just are amazed at what happens. You look at the forces of nature, for example, and yes, we can have a physics lecture on how those things and all the climate and all this stuff, but there's something beyond that. There's a greater power. Looking out into an infiniteness in the skies where there's like billions and billions of stars, and each of those stars are galaxies, and each of those galaxies have an infinite number of stars, or almost, and then those have potentially habitable planets. I mean, life. When we talk about one life, let's not get so caught up in the idea that this is just one life here on Earth. Life is one life, and it's an infiniteness. It's pan-universal, if you will, beyond our ability to understand. So we look at all this and we say, well, how is God? How is my relationship? How am I? I'm such an insignificant little part of that greater whole, right? But we're not. And this is the amazing thing, that we are the divine principle expressing as us, and that there is a connectedness between us and that which is expressing as us. And in that connection, we have, through something that was given to us that Holmes calls volition, the ability to make a choice, we have control of certain circumstances and events and how we express and experience life. And for me, that's exciting, on a level that I can't even begin to share with you. And I don't want to get too out of sorts here explaining this, but it's amazing that the infiniteness and all way beyond and beyond, and yet it's centralized right here within me, that I have a connectedness with it, and right there within you, and you have a connectedness with it, that we're not ever alone, and we're not ever apart from. And when we start there and we look out into the world, if you make that your foundation, how does your worldview change? And this is what Holmes was talking about. When we realize as a humanity the brotherhood of humanity, the familyhood, the oneness of humanity, there's so much that we see in the world that can be changed. But there's also so much that we see in our lives that we can change. We can change our life experience. And as we do that, other things change. But the discovery of God takes place within us. We got to go there first. Once we go there, once we start there, actually, then we can move beyond. And I'm going to move into our first break, and I'll see you when we come back, and we'll pick it up. Tell us about this.
Okay, so this listing is over in Woodward Lakes.
Ooh,
it is
nice.
at 10595 North Seacrest in the 93730. It is a quick walk to the clubhouse where you have a junior Olympic sized pool, clubhouse facilities, gym, and those views you just saw of the lake.
Right.
This home has been completely remodeled downstairs. You see the nice kitchen.
Yeah,
very
nice.
custom kitchen, lifetime warranty on the cabinets, granite, beautiful, gorgeous granite in the kitchen counters. Newer bathrooms, wood. It's actually vinyl plank flooring that can withstand a lot more, puppy scratches. There's,
It is
it
family friendly.
It is family friendly, exactly.
And that's a good thing.
Yes. It has a gorgeous pool in the backyard,
We
3
saw
bedrooms,
that,
2
yeah.
baths, 1,624 square feet
Nice
on a
size home.
corner cul-de-sac lot
Ooh,
in a gated community.
that sounds like a
yeah,
prime piece of property.
I think so. Yes.
And what's the asking on that, eh?
The listing price is $375,000.
Cool. That's a great price for it. Once again, the address on that place.
That is 10595 North Seacrest Avenue in Fresno, 93730.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. So we're talking about this thing called God and finding it within ourselves. And I'm going to refer back to a couple more things here out of Living the Science of Mind. And this is on page 108, and Holmes says, "We wish more than a blind acceptance of God. We need to know, as he says, with scientific certainty, that there is a consciousness and a power in the universe that responds to us definitely, directly, and dynamically." A consciousness in the universe that responds to us definitely and dynamically, to us as individuals. And that's what I was talking about right before we went to the break. There is something in the allness that responds to us when we first respond to it. And it works for us by working through us. So he goes on to say, he says, each individual must arrive at a place in his own consciousness where this contact is so immediate and so dynamic that if every other living soul denied it, he would know without a doubt. And without this inner conviction, neither faith nor understanding is possible. We would be depending on a forlorn hope which might vanish in the hour of need. Knowing, Holmes says, we wanted to know and know that we know. And we can only get to that level of experiential knowingness or embodiment, if you will, is through experience. Well, how do we experience that? Well, these are some of the tools that we teach in New Thought, Science of Mind, and other spiritual organizations also. And things like prayer and meditation, affirmation, these are all things that we've talked about in the past. But they create within us an openness to experience something that lives within the, as I said in the beginning, within the core of our beingness, that awaits our seeking it before it really makes itself known to us. And it's awesome. He says, we talk about God because everyone instinctively feels that God is, and because human experience proves the necessity of such a supposition in order to explain the facts that we do know. And this is Holmes' opinion, and I'm in perfect alignment with it. He says, we start with the simple induction that since man is and has consciousness, he must live in consciousness. Consciousness or pure spirit must be the cause of everything that is, including the physical universe. And he spells consciousness with a capital C, so you can insert there spirit, source, God, whatever. Doesn't make any difference. Now, the interesting thing about this, relating this back to science in general, is the idea that, you know, there's exciting things that are going on in science all the time. And we can look at them and see things that, you know, it just kind of correlates. And I've said this, it's been a while, but when, and I have a few years under my belt, but when I was in college and we were in science, we were talking about vacuums. You know, we talked about a perfect vacuum. Well, science doesn't talk about a perfect vacuum anymore because science, they know today that there is no such thing. There's something they call a quantum vacuum. And a quantum vacuum is kind of that perfect vacuum, except that it is permeated with something called energy. We're not sure exactly what kind of energy, but the energy's there. And then the most amazing thing happens, that there's this thing called the Higgs boson or Higgs boson particle, or the God particle, and all of a sudden it pops up in there, and with this energy, depending on what they call celebrity of this particle, well, you get energy attracted to it, and then matter forms. Out of nothing, something. Well, it's not really nothing, but the something is there. Well, if we have this infinite energy, and something that science also calls information, and that's a whole nother story in itself. But if you have infinite energy and infinite information, it's not a big leap to maybe to understand that energy and information creates consciousness. And in artificial intelligence, that's partly what they're doing. They're utilizing energy and information to create what they call artificial intelligence. It's very limited. Imagine if it was infinite. And consciousness, then, with energy and the ability to create, because consciousness has that ability, creates out of itself that which is, in order for it to have something to be conscious of. That's one way of looking at it. So creation takes place. People oftentimes want to, you know, when we talk about creation, well, you know, and some people they want to stay into the Christian theological understanding of creation, and some people want to throw that out and look at some other way. Consider, and I'm just going to pose this to you, that we have infinite consciousness, creative intelligence. Does it have to do it in an instant the way it was written in a book? Or can it still achieve its goals if, in fact, that time and space have no reality within it? And although we experience time and space, that an evolutionary creative process takes place, and we're here. You know, it's kind of the same thing, so to speak. Our journey is not a journey of creating power over our fellow human beings. Our journey is a very personal journey, creating a life where in our life, we live our life maximally with the gifts and the potential gifts that the divine has gifted us as individuals. It's an amazing thing. We're all individuals. You're an individual. You have certain artistic, musical, mechanical, logic skills, and so on and so forth. And someone else has other skills that are, you know, they're all over the map. Most of the time, unfortunately, we fail to express the skills that are really a part of our individual unique makeup, because we fit into the molds that society tells us we got to be. And you know, it's a funny thing about those molds, because as we allow ourselves to be fitted into those molds, those are the same identifiers that oftentimes we embody to identify ourselves as being separate from a greater oneness. If in fact that God is expressing through all that is, where is the separateness, okay? And what I mean is, okay, we have cultures, and we have race, and we have genders, and we have sex, and so on and so forth. But all of that is just a mere physical presentation of a spiritual truth, a spiritual reality. And in that spiritual truth and reality, all those things fall away. Now, we can hold our banner up, and we can hold tightly to our self, definitions of who we are. But as we do, we also hold ourselves separate from it. And if that's your choice, then that's your choice. And you're going to seek to create a better world as you understand it. But it'll always be a better world of separateness, which means that somebody separate from you is maybe going to have a different understanding of what a better world is, and then you have conflict. Whereas if we celebrate our unity, if we celebrate our oneness, if we celebrate the awesomeness of all that is, it's not about anything other than growing ourselves spiritually, and we really should spend a lot of time doing that. And that doesn't mean we do that at the loss of celebrating or experiencing the physical part of life. But we've been given so many gifts that we have to tap in to within ourselves in order to reach that level that maybe, just maybe, we want to spend some time doing that. I'm going to take our next break now, and I'll see you when we come back. Contact David Sprinkle at Century 21 Denton Realty to buy this beautiful home in Yosemite Lakes Park. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and over 2,900 square feet. Dave can help you with your real estate needs in Fresno, Madera, and Mariposa counties and surrounding areas. When you need a realtor, call Dave Sprinkle at 559-285-9785.
Diane Ainsworth's books of poetry and scriptures are available at CondioPress.com and as ebooks at Amazon.com. Diane hopes the words in her books will convey the unconditional love Jesus has for you. Learn more at godsinspirationsblog.wordpress.com and get a copy of Diane's books today. Protect yourself by letting private investigator Michael Morgan Clark get the facts you need in matters of infidelity and divorce, corporate investigations, criminal defense, workers' comp, child parental abduction, wrongfully accused. Michael Morgan Clark will investigate anyone. Call 559-785-1900 or visit clarkinvestigations.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, as we move forward, I want to pause here for a minute, and I want to point something out. In religious science of mind and spirit, we have individuals that they take classes, they become qualified to become practitioners. Ernest Holmes believed that everybody should be a practitioner of sorts, and I want to just read this. He says, "I believe everyone should be a practitioner, consciously using a definite principle for a specific purpose." Now, nobody has to be a professional practitioner. That's not what I mean. But he or she should know what they believe and why and how to use it. Okay, the how to use it part. We've talked about finding God within ourselves, and we've talked about our unity, the oneness, and how that goes. We've talked about in the past the power of affirmative prayer treatment, but I want to touch on something real quick here as we move forward. And again, I'm referring back into Living the Science of Mind under Let Us Not Fool Ourselves. And Ernest Holmes says, in the science of mind, we do not say everything is all right when it is all wrong. He says, we do not say peace when there is no peace, but rather we try to discover what is wrong and why we do not have peace. We do not say that people are poor or not poor, sick or unhappy. We ask why these things should be if the original cause of all things is harmonious, perfect, radiant, and happy. In other words, if God is all there is and God is love, Why is it we experience these things? Well, if I happen to believe that I'm separate from the whatever, I'm on my own in life, then life happens to me. If I happen to believe that I'm part of the greater harmony of a oneness, if I believe that the divine principle has created me and expresses as me and through me, then life happens for me, doesn't it? I'm here to experience life. I'm here to express life, and I'm here to express life maximally. But people oftentimes get caught up in, when they first come to New Thought, Science of Mind, and they well, it's just all beautiful. No, it's not all beautiful. But we have power within ourselves as to how we experience that comes at us, that we experience, and we have power within ourselves to create something greater out of what happens to us in life. So he goes on to say, he says, let us not fool ourselves by thinking that a few idle statements will change our life experience. This calls for a calm, insistent determination to reorganize the whole body of our thinking until, at last, the little irritations and vexations of life, the too harsh differences of belief, and the disagreements with everything and everyone are redeemed. This redemption can come only through a conscious sense of our union with something greater than we are. Welcome home. Welcome home is what Holmes is saying. When we recognize the truth of who we are, when we recognize that we're part of this greater oneness, this wholeness, and that we're never alone. And if we're never alone, then there's always something available to us. So as we begin to go through life and life happens for us, and maybe it's something that we have to struggle with, let's accept the struggle instead of accepting the suffering that we believe the struggle brings. Let's accept the struggle as that is part of our life experience, and we are to transcend and overcome that. And we are not alone in that process. And this is where understanding the power of affirmative prayer treatment or spiritual mind healing really begins to have an effect in our life. We're not alone. But if we perceive ourselves to be alone, life provides us with the experience of aloneness. If we perceive ourselves to be a part of a greater whole with a greater good available to us, we begin to see that no matter what life may unfold, that there's something. Christian Larson used to say, "There's good to be found in everything," and that's true. In the most difficult times, there's still good to be found, but there's no good to be found if we're not of a mindset to see it to begin with. We got to get to that point. So, Holmes says, and this is in the Science of Mind, the first requisite. He says the first requisite for mental and spiritual practitioner is the full sense of the sacredness of their trust, the sacredness of the confidence of the person they're working for, which impels them to pour out their very soul. If that person is you, you have a sacred trust to yourself. How many of you take time to tell yourself how wonderful you are? Think about it. You're the most wonderful being in your life. You're the most exceptional individual in your whole life experience. And yet, I would wager that you get up, you face the day, you deal with the day, and you do whatever it is you have to do, and you never give much thought to the awesomeness that you are. People will say, "How are you today?" And you go, "Oh, I'm okay," or, "I got this or that." How many of you say, "I'm awesome, I'm great"? Well, think about it. The mere fact that you are life expressing as you is awesome, and it's great. Most of us don't take the time to put our mindset in that. Our mindset is, well, I'm okay, I'm getting through the day. But we're more than that. We're so much more than that. And this is what Science of Mind and Spirit, what New Thought has brought to the world in an organized manner, if you will. There's nothing here that's new. Ernest Holmes did not claim to invent or discover anything new. What he did claim was to study a lot, and to find those things in which he studied and connect them to things that were of like philosophy to create a spiritual philosophy based on ancient truths. And, you know, it was an amazing thing in his journey, in his discovery. He began at some point to realize just how much of the life and the teachings of this individual that we call Jesus the Christ were in harmony with what it was that he was discovering and learning. So he refers a lot to this individual, to the teachings that he taught. And there's some that are so fundamental that, and we've shared them, you know, going back to what we're talking about today, this idea of oneness, this unity. When Jesus said, you know, we love our neighbors, we love ourselves. In truth, if we're all one, that, you know, we need to love ourselves so that we can love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And in truth, if we are to love God with our spirit or source, whatever you want to call it, with all that we are, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but if all that we are is that expressing as us, in truth, that's where it's happening, it's where it's at. And as we do this, when we take the time to do this, then we have to make, you know, logically we have to make a different set of choices if we've been living in a physical, material world. We have to begin to make choices of there's something greater than, and I'm part of that, which means that I'm not an inferior being. And how many of us have, you know, through self-deprivation, you know, saw that we're not enough in some way? You know, sometimes we define as not enough in only certain areas. Sometimes we define our whole life as not enough. We need to put that story up on the shelf. It's history and belongs to somewhere else. It doesn't belong in our life. It doesn't belong in our consciousness, because we are enough. We are the divine principle expressing as us. So, you know, I come and I share these thoughts and teachings, and so, you know, I just kind of, today's just kind of a rambling of things that are in my head. But this idea of one, okay, we've got God, and we're God expressing, and we can actually tie into that. We can utilize it. We can be the volitional choice, force, if you will, in how we experience our life. Life happens, but how we experience our life is definitely left up to us. And, you know, isn't it interesting how we run into people in life that they just don't seem to have anything that can be self-defeating. And no matter what happens, you know, they're always up, they're always positive, they're always confident, they're always within themselves and expressing a greater good with every breath they take. And then we see just the opposite sometimes. You know, people that, you know, some people say it's like they suck the life force out of everything around them. And, you know, it's amazingly sad when people fail to see the awesomeness of the truth of who they are, but they're there. And the thing is, you can't give that to somebody, the gift of recognizing the truth of who they are. As we said earlier, the journey is a self-discovery. But in our personal journey of self-discovery, as we do this, as we walk our path, as we begin to express a greater life experience, as we begin to see that the divine principle is in everything we do, as Joel Goldsmith used to say, we practice the presence of God in all that is. You know, our whole mindset changes, and all of a sudden, you know, positive things pop up when we would have expected maybe something less. We can begin to experience that. And it's not magic, it's just the divine principle working in itself. So we move into something called spiritual mind healing. That's something that is available to each and every one of us because, as Holmes says, we should all be practitioners of this. And it makes no difference where you are in your spiritual journey today, okay? You can be a part of any particular religion, sect of religion. Consider for just a moment. All basic philosophies of faith incorporate some type of prayer, okay? They all do. I'm not here to discuss any particular type of prayer from any other faith, but I'm here to ask you to consider when you practice your prayer, and I would highly recommend that you do this on an ongoing basis, daily, multiple times a day possibly, but at least take time every day to make that connectedness, whatever your beliefs are. Even if you are an atheist, and you don't believe in the divine principle, take time and quiet the mind. Go within yourself. You'd be surprised what you might find there. But we do this, okay? And then, in that quietness, just recognize that there is a force, there's a power greater than you are that is available to you. And just hold that as maybe a thought or an affirmation. If you don't believe in God, just allow yourself to believe in there are powers of nature that are greater than you are. However you want to approach it, it doesn't make any difference. And just leave that open in your mind. And you don't have to go any further than that. But if you choose to, you can recognize your connectedness with that power greater than you are, the unity of yourself with that, and then if that is the case, and we believe that it is the case, then you can make some declarations. I am experiencing greater good, or I am experiencing greater happiness. I'm experiencing more harmonious thoughts. Just little steps, you work at it. But as you do, as you work at this, and if you keep it up, and the thing is, it's like learning to play an instrument. You're not going to, you're not going to practice guitar for a week and then, give a virtuoso performance at some, concert or something. You got to practice. It's a skill. You work, you build it up. But if you continue, you'll get better. You'll get more proficient. And at some point, as you continue in your prayer work, you're going to begin to see demonstrations that actually reflect the prayer work that you've been doing. And once you get to this point, this is that point of realization, self-realization of the power within you to create demonstrations in your life for a better good. That can be a very exciting moment. Sometimes it's an evolution that takes place in a gradual awareness, but at some point you begin to recognize that I'm seeing things unfold in my life in such a way that they're maybe a direct result. And then, they kind of might be. And then they are a direct result of how I've set my mindset through my prayer work, my meditation work, the affirmations I do. And we move forward, okay? Going back, he says, the first requisite for our spiritual practitioner is a full sense of the sacredness, okay? That's a concept, and we get that when we go within ourselves, okay? Our spiritual growth is, in a sense, our purpose for being here. And it's not and I don't know how to exactly put this, but it's not an activity per se. It is a beingness, okay? And as we begin to embody this as a beingness for ourselves, we, like I said, we change, but the world begins to change around us. Going back to Ernest Holmes, what I read when we started, this idea of, where was I here? I lost my page. Oh well. The idea of oneness and unity, of a brotherhood, a familyhood, of humanity. If you're feeling lonely, begin to just contemplate on what it would feel like not to feel lonely, instead of contemplating on what loneliness is, okay? Contemplate on not feeling lonely. Or if you're struggling financially, contemplate on what that feels like to not be in financial lack. Just contemplate on it on an ongoing basis. And when the opportunity arises for you to shortchange yourself by putting yourself down because you have lack in some areas, stop yourself. One of the things that Reverend Ike used to say, and he's a great read, although he's no longer with us. You can find his book still out there. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. And he had a great way of putting many things. But he said, you pull into a gas station, and the price has gone up on the gas. Don't berate yourself for your lack. if you can put gas in the tank. Bless yourself for the abundance you have, even if it's only $1, that you have that. It's a shift in mindset. It's a shift in consciousness. And I know people that they get so stuck in their mindset of lack and limitation, and they just can't see. And the thing is, if you'll just stop. What do you have to be grateful for right now? And don't say nothing. We all have a lot to be grateful for. Some of us can itemize a lot of things right off the top of our head, and some of us have to work. But you can start with the mere fact that you're here. And you say, well, my life's tough. I don't know that that's a blessing. It is. You have the opportunity to grow from wherever you're at. And like with everything in life, as we move through the struggle, we get stronger. We don't run from those things that challenge us. We move forward. We challenge them back. We realize that ultimately we have a bigger God than whatever obstacles may be in our life, which means that when obstacles come, when life comes at us at the speed of life, so to speak, that we're not overwhelmed, but we stand for the challenge, and we stand confidently, we stand in faith, and we stand for a greater good, and we can see the expression of the divine principle unfolding in our life. And no matter what is going on in life, as you see that unfold, it's pretty awesome. And so we can do that. We can move forth with that. Okay, I'm going to take our third and final break, and I'll see you when we come back.
This 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Clovis is now for sale. Nestled on a cul-de-sac in a planned unit development, the quiet neighborhood is near Sierra Vista Mall, grocery stores, and Clovis Unified Schools. This well-maintained home, featuring an open kitchen with a breakfast bar, dining area, a family room with fireplace, ceiling fans, vaulted ceilings, and inside laundry room. The large master suite has 2 large closets, a roomy bathroom with shower, and exterior door leading to the patio. Located near the intersection of Gettysburg and Fowler Avenue, call Mike Briggs Properties at 559-486-6758 to buy this home today.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center in Fresno, California. Well, I've covered some stuff. Like I say, I didn't have any particular format for today. I have oftentimes I have handouts for our Sunday lesson at the Spiritual Awareness Center, and something I put together for last Sunday and talked about it is an idea of self-empowerment through mind and spirit. You know, as we begin to take conscious recognition that maybe there's more to life than what we've been experiencing. Maybe we want more, maybe we want to be more, maybe we want to experience life at a different level. But all of that starts with a choice, a decision. And the decision is for each and every one of us to become more empowered in our life, more empowered in our life experience and our expression. And part of that, as we've talked about earlier, is the recognition of spirit in its powerful demonstration in our life. But we have personal responsibilities within this too. And so I covered some stuff, and I just want to kind of go through this today. I said we want to gain the broadest possible awareness of our thoughts and emotions. Oftentimes we get so stuck because it's like all right here, right? That we lose perspective. And when we step back, and we just, almost as if we put ourselves out in front of us to take a look at, become aware of our thoughts and emotions. Are they empowering thoughts and emotions? Are they limiting thoughts and emotions? Are there a mix? And what's the majority of the mix, okay? We want to create a mindset. And even as we look at this, we can start, as we're evaluating our thoughts and emotions, we do it from a mindset of warmth and positive self-regard. Stop with the negative self-talk. Stop with putting yourself down. Oh, we can look and say, oh, we got all these negative. Stop. You are not only a child of the infinite, you are an expression of that infinite also. That's awesome. So, I mean, I can tell you, we start with great and awesome, but maybe you can just start with warmth and support, okay? It'll work there. Okay, remember, you are not your thoughts, and your thoughts are not you. But you can become what you think about mostly. And you actually do become what you think about mostly. But you're not your thoughts. So as you recognize that you have self-limiting thoughts, you don't have to be a self-limiting person, but you do have to change your thoughts. You know, your trend of thought, your thinking. So you work on that. So you can learn to be the observer of your thoughts. That's a great skill, but it's really, it takes a little practice. You begin to watch what the ticker tape of your mind is running across there. Is it really affirming, or is it limiting, or it's kind of this, that, and the other? But you can watch, and as you watch, you can, as the observer, you can go, well, you know what? Let's focus on this thought. Let's change this thought. Let's thank ourselves for thinking it, and put it on the shelf, and let's replace it with something more positive. And if you can't get real positive, get a little more positive. Take it incrementally, but you can do it, okay? And you remember, you don't have to self-identify as your thoughts. And as the observer, you have the power to change your thoughts and your thought habits, and thus your thinking trend. And that's where it really comes down to. Changing our thought habits. What most of us don't realize is we think habitually. Our brain runs this ticker tape. Our mind doesn't pay much attention to it, but it's ongoing, and it's habits. There is a trigger, there is an action or response, and there's some kind of reward we get for that. Even if the reward is a negative reward, if we accept it so. So, habits, stimulus, trigger, response, a non-thinking reflex caused by the trigger, and actions delivering an imagined reward. So, I took a little something from AA, and it's not exactly out of context, but it's something that they utilize when someone is at a weakened state. They call it HALT. And the HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. In other words, hungry is a triggering feeling, angry is a triggering feeling, lonely is a triggering feeling, and tiredness, now it can be fatigue, and it can also be a triggering feeling. But what it is it's being aware. What is it in my state that is triggering me right now to be angry or hungry or lonely or whatever, okay? And once we recognize we have a trigger, then we can stop, and when triggered, okay, we recognize that we've been triggered. We try to identify what triggered us. Maybe it is hunger, anger. Maybe it's something somebody said. Maybe it's something we saw in the news. What triggered us, okay? Identify the old response. Maybe it's anger, confusion. It doesn't make any difference. This is the trigger. This is the old response, okay? And then what was the reward I got? And you'd be surprised how so many people reward themselves with negative thinking. And it seems oxymoronic, but it's, well, that's just the way it is type of thing. Or I got that. And it's not true, but we do that, okay? So, we got to be personal and in the moment. And when triggered, we want to create a personal mental thought or action, an interrupt. I don't recall the title of the book, but there's a book out there. There is a woman, she's got some TED Talks on YouTube, and the tool that she uses is, when triggered, count from 5 down to 1. And the science behind this is really interesting, because our mind can only really hold one thought at a time. I know that they used to say 7, but in truth, it's just about 1. When we start focusing on counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we kind of check out of the triggering reaction at that moment, if we're conscious and in the moment with it, okay? So we count from 5 to 1. In that time, we can shift and we can create a new reward for ourselves. And that reward can be just as simple as, hey, I got it. I didn't reflex response to that trigger. I was able to break. You give yourself a pat on the back. Maybe make it a bigger reward, whatever works for you, but you can do it, okay? You be the observer, daily practice, meditation, inner world work, mind, action, and all these are tools that we use to create a greater life experience. And we talk about greater life experience, we talk about using our mind, we talk about affirmations, but ultimately what we're really talking about is aligning ourselves with the divine principle that I refer to as God or Spirit or First Cause. And in our alignment with principle, we are more empowered. And as we recognize the truth of that, we see a greater demonstration in our life experience. So we've talked about some stuff, given you some ideas. I had something here that I think I want to touch on just a moment before we close. And this is from Extension Study Course in the Science of Mind. This happens to be Lesson 27. And Ernest Holmes opens the lesson with, one of the principal things to remember is that mind energy already exists. You're not creating anything. You're using and utilizing something there. It's kind of like air. We don't create air that we breathe. We just breathe. The mind energy already exists. We use this energy, as we do that of electricity, by individualizing it for conscious and specific purposes. That's what we talked about today. I mean, we covered some stuff, but we use it for conscious and specific purposes when we use it consciously, and we can each do that. He says we never create energy, we merely make use of a power which already exists. It is the life principle, it is the source, it is the force, it is the substance, and it is all. And it's available to each and every one of us. We turn our backs on it when we decide that we need to separate ourselves for one reason or another, individualize ourselves, if you will. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we don't want to express the individuality that we came into this life with. That's not the point. But that expression should not be our self-identification. If you happen to be very good as a musician, you can express music, and it's great. In expressing that music, you share it with the world. But you're not the music. You're just the medium through which the music expresses. And that medium is the divine principle that is you. And the gift of the individuality that you are brings those expressions into the world that we can individualize. But let's not take and separate ourselves out because of that. For some of us, that can be a big hurdle to get over, and I understand that. There's a lot going on in the world. There are calls and cries to pull ourselves out and to be separate, to look at the world as the other, whatever the other may be for each of us wherever we're at. But imagine, if you will, if this humanhood of humanity were recognized and practiced by the world at large, all war, poverty, need would vanish from the face of the earth. Think about that. They are creations of the finite mind and were never intended to be. Spirit, God, views all as perfect, as a perfect whole. Our divisions are only apparent. They can never be real. Hate generates hate, love begets love, and peace brings its own reward. Again, let us not fall under the illusion that we can possibly measure life from the short-range experience of that period of time between the cradle and the grave. Life is everlasting, and we are eternal beings. Eventually, love overcometh and exalteth itself above all, for love is a synonym for the eternal heart of the universe. And that's my story today, friends. I hope there was information in there that fed you on some level, enlightened you on some level, directed you, or just maybe interested you. enough that you decide to search further. There's a lot of information out there. You can always reach me. I have a Facebook page, Steve Walling Spiritual Awareness Center has a Facebook page, and I've got, you can private message me there. You can email me at madeirasac@gmail.com. I'll be having some new emails, but that one will be up for a long time yet. You can reach me if you want to, and I always reply and respond. And if you got a question, maybe it's something that we can, bring to the rest of our folks that watch this. And remember, you can now see us on the New Thought channel, which is awesome. There's a lot of other awesome people out there, great teachings. And if you're new to New Thought, I highly recommend the New Thought channel because there's, like I say, there's a lot of resources out there. And so I'm going to wrap it up for this week, my friends, and know that as you go through the week that I know that the light of God surrounds you, that the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you, because truly, wherever you are, God is there. And if that's so, and it is, then all is well. See you next week when we come back. Take care.
CentralValleyTalk.com